Tonight on Bridge City News, a plane crash into a lake in Labrador killed 3 people with another 4 remaining unaccounted for. The controversial pro-life film Unplanned had the second highest per-screen average in North America. And the Lethbridge Interfaith Food Bank is celebrating its 30th anniversary. The need to give is higher now more than ever before.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. 3 people are dead following the crash of a float plane into a lake in Labrador. Officials say the Air Saguenay plane went down late Monday night around 11:30. 4 others who were on board remain unaccounted for. The de Havilland DHC-2 Beaver float plane, similar to what you're seeing now, was headed from a fishing lodge at Crossroads Lake near the Quebec border on a remote camp in northern Labrador when it went down. The pilot is a 61-year-old man with 20,000 hours of flying experience and at least 6 years of flying in and out of Metaskin Lake. It's not yet known if he is counted among the dead or missing. This is the 3rd fatal crash in the last 9 years of a Beaver belonging to Air Saguenay. Lethbridge police made another drug bust. This one features meth, carfentanil, and crack cocaine with a total street value of around $85,000. The bust occurred July 12th at the Super Lodge Hotel on 7th Avenue South. Police also confiscated just over $14,000 in cash, ballistic body armor, jewelry, and electronics. 35-year-old Michael Newman Davies faces various charges, including drug possession and trafficking. Davies is expected to appear in court on Thursday. Many of you, our viewers, have been quite engaged on social media when it came to discussing the Lethbridge safe injection and consumption site known as Arches. Recent protests at the site from concerned residents have put Arches back into the spotlight. So we asked on our Twitter account if you thought Arches is doing an effective job in our city. Of the votes tabulated, 48% of you said no, 38% said yes, and 14% maybe. Arches was initially formed in 1986 with meetings of concerned residents, including members of the gay community, under the name Lethbridge HIV Connection. The controversial pro-life film Unplanned defied expectations at the box office and brought in close to $353,000 in Canada. That represents a per-screen average of close to $7,200 at 49 Canadian theatres, including the Movie Mill here in Lethbridge. Now, although it's nowhere near the numbers Hollywood blockbusters bring in, it was the second highest per-screen average in North America for July 12th through the 14th. Unplanned is based on the memoirs of former Planned Parenthood director turned pro-lifer Abby Johnson. The federal election is coming up on October 21st, but prior to that, parties have to nominate more candidates. There are 2 contenders vying to represent the NDP here in Lethbridge. Shandy Blykin and Sheldon Cruel are outlining their goals tonight, 7:30 p.m., at the nomination meeting in the Downtown Library's Theatre Gallery. Voting is open to paid members for at least 30 days, and registration will begin at 7 o'clock tonight. A veterinarian in Lethbridge has won a national award in recognition of her passion for improving feline medicine. Dr. Kate Lupton was honored by the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association in Toronto and presented with a Small Animal Practitioner Award. Lupton has been practicing for more than 6 years in Lethbridge, developing a feline-only practice. Dr. Lupton has written feline articles for magazines and is the primary vet for several local feline rescue groups, including Last Chance Cat Ranch. It's a great name. The Interfaith Food Bank has been serving our community for 30 years. Besides providing food for those in need, the organization offers so much more. Ainsley O'Reilly headed to their 30th anniversary party earlier today and learned about some of those impactful programs and the people who run them.
3 decades and over 150 volunteers a year have kept the Interfaith Food Bank alive and well in Lethbridge.
Well, for us to reach a milestone like 30 years is a big deal, just to celebrate the number of people and the community effort that's gone into building our organization and to providing for our families right here in Lethbridge. Some of the people that I've met when they first came started accessing emergency food assistance, and then we saw them get involved with our community kitchen programs, and some of them are volunteering or even working with us today, which is amazing because you see that transition in their life and how the food bank has impacted them internally.
In January of this year, Interfaith opened its multi-use kitchen, a space for community programs. Events coordinator Mac Nickel gave me a tour of the facility and shared some new expansion plans.
We'll have these rooms, the locker rooms, turned into classrooms so that they're more usable, and we can start doing that secondary programming to helping people move out of where they are in their life. which we're really excited about. And it'll allow us to move more things into this warehouse, including our hamper packing, that kind of thing moves back in here, so we can use the back side of the building as the main warehouse.
Wilma Mulder is a volunteer who's starting up a new program this summer called Helpful Hobbies, where seniors can take their favorite activities and donate the final result to the food bank.
There's a lot of seniors that are basically looking for places to be and do things, and they're just sitting at home right now, and it just integrates them more into the community, and it gives them something to do with their time.
Lethbridge's food bank averages 1,500 people every month. Now think about that over 30 years. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
Another 30th anniversary celebrated in our city is the Lethbridge Twinning Society. Twinning Society means sister city. Lethbridge shares this in common with towns in Russia and Japan and 3 U.S. cities. Earlier today, Makoto Sakurada, a world-renowned artist from Japan, showcased his work. Sakurada has performed around the world, including Carnegie Hall in New York. Synchronized swimming is a hybrid form of swimming, dance, and gymnastics. Today, we're exploring the world of synchronized swimming. BCN's Loris Alexander has more on why more and more people are taking a dive into the sport.
This summer, we have covered a lot of camps, and this has to be one of the most unique ones. I'm talking about synchronized swimming, and here to talk to us about it is head coach Sarah Kint at the University of Lethbridge.
This is one of our summer camps that we've offered this summer. The goal is to try and get more children out in our sport and see what synchronized swimming, artistic swimming now, is all about.
So what is it all about? In layman's terms, artistic swimming is dancing in the water.
We're dancing to music, we're counting the music, so we're synchronized. We're working as a team together to put on a show for everybody watching.
Kint is hoping her students fall in love with the sport and that they'd want to continue to pursue it.
This is one sport that you can do for life. I've seen 90-year-olds swim synchronized swimming, artistic swimming. And it's amazing to see that. I've also taught 5-year-olds to swim, and just seeing them grasp the techniques and skills is really rewarding, watching them grow.
Like 14-year-old Mia Chalmé, who's been in synchronized swimming for 4 years and now helps teach the class.
I just really like the people that I meet, and I get to have lots of fun, but at the same time work and be strong and muscular.
Well, my sister stayed until she was 14. She's in the pool right now, and I think I'm going to do the same thing when I'm older. I'm going to follow my sister around. I like the side dive. It's basically like a normal dive. So you start in a dive position with your hands up like you're a sharp pencil. And then you tilt yourself over a bit, you jump into the pool sideways, and you land. I haven't learned the backwards one yet, but I think that'll be a really fun one later. So yeah.
It's really fun, and I'm really getting along to go to Synchro to learn, to show everyone I'm a good swimmer.
Kint has a message for families considering enrolling their children in the Lethbridge Synchro Swim Club.
Not only are they going to learn life skills that are very important, swimming skills, they're going to develop some bonds and some friendships, learning how to swim creatively, and to develop some more confidence in themselves and what they're doing. I think it's one of the best activities. I'm a little biased, but I think this is one of the best activities that anybody can try, and hopefully they fall in love with it like I did.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
Kint says if you're interested in enrolling in the Lethbridge Synchro Summer Camp, the cost is $250. The camp runs from 8:30 till 4:30 Monday through Friday. Kint says payment options are available to make it more affordable. The City of Edmonton has been fined $165,000. The city pleaded guilty to one count under the Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act for the improper use of a pesticide. The provincial court heard that the city used the pesticide Hyver XL along a walkway in a residential area. The product's label says it is not to be used in residential areas. The penalty will help fund 3 projects, which include money for the U of A, the creation of new eco-islands in Parkland County, and updating the identification guide for invasive plants in the North Saskatchewan watershed. Advocacy group Animal Justice says rodeo events and chuck wagon races should not be exempt from Alberta's animal cruelty laws. The call comes from a total of 6 horses who died in this year's chuck wagon races at the Calgary Stampede. Stampede organizers say they will review the safety of its chuck wagon races. Stampede officials say horses are like family to the drivers, and it's devastating when something goes wrong. A man riding a motorbike died after police say a car made a turn into his path. Police say the accident occurred yesterday afternoon in Cochrane. The 64-year-old rider was taken to a Foothills Hospital in Calgary but did not survive. The 78-year-old woman who was driving the car also sustained undetermined injuries. There was some conflicting testimony in court yesterday about whether a youth who fired a gun at a German tourist on an Alberta highway last year did it on his own or was ordered to do so. The accused from the Stoney Nakoda First Nation was just 16 when 60-year-old Horst Stewen was shot in the head when someone passed him west of Calgary. The car's driver said he did not know the teen was going to shoot, but another passenger testified the driver told the teenager to fire the gun. The court heard that Stewen is paralyzed on his right side and suffers from memory issues. Housing for some of Calgary's homeless is on the way. The province announced today that renovations are underway to turn a former hotel in northeast part of the city into a supportive housing development. Once renos are complete on Centre 4800, it will provide 79 units ranging from studios to 2-bedroom apartments. Total cost of the project will be around $14 million, with the province providing just over $5 million and Ottawa another $8.78 million. Tenants can begin moving into the facility next month. Getting a haircut in Manitoba may become a little more affordable if the PCs are re-elected this fall. The governing party is promising to chop the provincial sales tax from haircuts if they're re-elected this fall. 7 years ago, the NDP government at the time extended the sales tax to haircuts and other services costing more than $50. Tory MLA Rochelle Squires says the tax on haircuts disproportionately affects women's expenses since women's haircuts generally cost a lot more. South of the border, Democrats in the United States are planning a vote on a resolution that condemns U.S. President Donald Trump's comments about 4 congresswomen of color. The resolution said it is un-American to tell people to, quote, go back to their country.
Well, maybe he should leave since he's not happy. It's a ridiculous statement. You know, dissent is patriotic. The thing that has always made America great is that people are willing to make it better every time and willing to commit real energy and passion and resources. There's a freedom of speech issue. I think when you combine sort of a false patriotism with fear, which he puts into people because he's a bully, it really has tremendous consequences on suppressing dissent, and I think we have to refuse to allow that to be the case.
Republican leaders, meanwhile, in Congress also rebuked Trump's attack on 4 women of color, insisting his tweets are more about ideology and politics.
I want to make absolutely clear that our opposition to our socialist colleagues has absolutely nothing to do with their gender, with their religion, or with their race. It has to do with the content of their policies. They're wrong when they attempt to impose the fraud of socialism on the American people. They're wrong when they pursue policies that would steal power from the American people and give that power to the government. They're wrong when they espouse and enable, and their leadership refuses to condemn vile anti-Semitism.
Recent reports from Israel say a senior Hamas official is calling on Palestinians to stab and kill Jews. According to our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, the call is Jews to be killed around the world.
Now remember, Hamas is a terror organization, but they're also the official and recognized leadership of the Palestinian people. Announced that it's not enough to just kill Jews in Israel, to go after the Israeli soldiers, to kill people on the border, to go into pizza shops and buses and wherever else and kill Jews. You should kill them wherever you see them.
Catch my full interview with our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, bringing you some of the biggest stories from around the globe, coming up after business news. Hundreds of migrants from Africa are joining Central Americans on a long, dangerous journey to seek asylum in the United States. As we hear in this next report, one family shared their experience fleeing the Democratic Republic of Congo through South America.
The Duluyele family escaped a brutal attack that killed hundreds in their village in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And after a grueling 4-month journey through 10 countries, they arrived in the United States.
I thought of death. I really didn't think I would survive. It was really, truly terrifying.
The family of 5 walked through a Central American jungle. They struggled with disease, resorted to eating leaves. They worried constantly about their safety. They eventually crossed into Texas, where they were processed by immigration officials and bused to Portland, Maine.
There were people we were walking with who died. There was a person behind us. His wife died with their 3 children. Imagine for me, to get out with my whole family, yes, for me, that's success for me.
With Europe-bound migrants being turned away or drowning in the Mediterranean Sea, hundreds of Africans are increasingly taking their chances on a longer land route to the United States through Central and South America.
When we talk of democracy, we see America, we see the United States. Me, I think that in the United States I can express myself freely. I've been able to have security and protection. That's the reason why I chose the United States.
Many African migrants are choosing Maine because of its reputation for welcoming immigrants and its support services. Earlier this year, more than 200 were staying at this makeshift shelter on a basketball court at the Portland Expo.
Frankly, I wouldn't advise anyone else to take that route. It was bad and dangerous. Me, personally, I wouldn't tell any of my family members to take that route.
Now the Duluyele family is waiting to see what their legal options are. Their next step is making a case to the U.S. government for staying. Robert Bumstead, Associated Press.
We had sun mixed with cloud today and a little bit cooler, and even cooler temperatures are on the way. Complete weather details are coming up. We had a slightly cooler day in the Windy City. Tonight, a chance of showers developing with a low near 11. Partly cloudy tomorrow with a high near 23. A chance of showers on Thursday with the mercury dropping to 20. Even cooler with a high of only 18 degrees on Friday. A nice weekend is shaping up. Saturday partly cloudy with a high near 23. Sunday mainly sunny with a high expected near 28. Monday even warmer with a high near 31. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 26 and an average low of 11. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1970 at 35 degrees, and the record low was +1 in 1999. Sunrise was at 5:41, sunset at 9:34. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across the country now. Victoria and Vancouver should both receive some rain and a high near 21. Just a few clouds and 22 is on tap for Calgary on Wednesday. A risk of thunder showers and 23 for Edmonton. A mixture of sun and cloud and 25 for Regina. Showers and 23 degrees for Saskatoon tomorrow. A good chance of rain at 25 for Winnipeg. Thunder showers and 28 for both Toronto and Ottawa on Wednesday. Rain and 30 is expected in Montreal. Over the Maritimes, Fredericton had a heat warning today. Tomorrow, a slight chance of rain and a high near 30. Halifax should receive some spotty showers and a high near 22. Charlottetown will also receive some rain and a high near 27. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect drizzle with a high near 18 degrees tomorrow. CP Rail says its second quarter net income jumped more than 2/3 over the same quarter last year. It says it earned $724 million in the quarter. That is up from $436 million a year earlier. The Calgary-based company says revenue increased 13% to a record $1.98 billion, driven by a leap in traffic across the board. CP Rail says its adjusted earnings per diluted share were up 36% to $4.30. That beat analysts' expectations of $4.18 per share. Amazon faced protest on its 5th annual Amazon Prime Day. While the Seattle-based e-commerce company said it's offering more than 1 million deals, employees were outside of a warehouse in Minnesota protesting.
What do we want? When do we want it?
I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't go very far. And if I don't get back to work pretty soon...
Hard work of its employees to stand apart as a corporate leader. How do we achieve a livable wage for all of our workers? Together.
A Toronto man who lost his family in a plane crash last March says Boeing should scrap the 737 MAX jet. He also wants the company's top executives to resign and face criminal charges for not grounding the plane after an earlier deadlier crash in October. 5 months after the crash in Indonesia, Paul Jaroga's wife, 3 kids and mother-in-law were killed when another 737 went down shortly after takeoff in Ethiopia. The crash killed 18 Canadians. Jarogas is the first relative of any of the 346 passengers killed in both crashes to testify before the U.S. Congress. Producers are being asked for input on proposed changes to seed royalty structures for cereal crops. Farm groups across the prairies have launched an online survey saying they want to hear from producers on the proposed changes before Ottawa's consultations resume later this year. The options being considered include changing endpoint royalties and trailing royalties on farm-safe seed. The survey is available at seedroyaltysurvey.com. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, 3 people are dead following the crash of a float plane into a lake in Labrador. Officials say the Air Saguenay plane went down late Monday night around 11:30 p.m. 4 others who were on board remain unaccounted for. Iran says it is willing to negotiate on its nuclear deal if the United States lifts sanctions. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari has details next. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. If you're a woman who's interested in improving your health, come to the Refresh Urban Retreat on July 20th at Youth One in Lethbridge. Enjoy a full day with top nutritionists, physiotherapists, kinesiologists, and more. Registration deadline is July 18th, and funds raised through this event will go to Youth One. To register, visit freetobehealthy.org. Looking for a fun summer activity for your kids? Roar is a vacation Bible school which is taking place July 29th to August 2nd from 9 a.m. to noon at the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd in Lethbridge, for ages 4 to 11 at no cost. To register and for more details, go to lutheranchurchofthegoodShepherd.com or call 403-328-3445. Big Brothers Big Sisters in Lethbridge is searching for volunteers to mentor children and youth in their various programs. Volunteers commit anywhere from 1 hour a week to 1 full year. They have many kids on their wait list that are looking for a big brother or sister. Make a difference in a child's life and start something big. For more information, call 403-328-9355 or email info.leth@bigbrothersbigsisters.ca. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
U.S. President Donald Trump was on the defensive recently, denying that recent tweets against 4 women of color were not racist. Trump told the 4 Democrats to stop complaining about his policy or they could leave the United States. Now, joining me now to discuss this is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me from Los Angeles via Skype. Lisa, is this more about red and blue, as in the colors of the Republicans and Democrats, rather than black and white?
Oh, that's a great question and a great setup. It's very difficult to side with Donald Trump when he actually, the content of what he's saying, there's some truth to it. So far be it from me to ever defend anything or justify or condone anything that is actually racist or actually sexist or actually would marginalize 4 women. But in this case, you have 4 elected officials who do nothing but hate on this country. And especially at a time when the United States, we're living in a climate where immigration is one of the biggest issues of our time. And it's a privilege to live in this country. And I think that, and again, far be it from me to translate what Donald Trump is trying to say, but I do believe that what he's trying to say is, If you don't like it here, you could leave. It's a privilege to live here. So, I think he's talking more about the constant complaints and America bashing that you see from these four individuals more than anything else. I think people who are elected to office, it's usually because you become the CEO of a company because you believe in the company, you believe in the product, and you believe in the business. And you don't see that from these individuals. And they've created this environment of just hate and bashing and division. And of course, their first go-to is racism. He was racist in his tweet, and we're from this country. And let me tell you, I was born in this country, but if someone told me go home to your country, I understand what that means because I'm the daughter of immigrants. So that means I would go back to the country that my parents came from. Why? Because I am cognizant of the blessing that it is to live in the United States. And I think that that's what he is trying to get at. Again, the rhetoric can be toned down, the tweets can be kinder, and much more, I don't know. I don't know if any tweet that he puts out would ever be well received by both sides. I think it is blue and red, as you said in your initial question. But I do think that it could be stated in a way that's better understood.
Yeah, and sometimes perhaps Mr. Trump needs a filter. Let's just put it that way, maybe a filter sometimes.
Or a communications person who can actually get through to him. I don't know. I would volunteer because I always feel like, well, if you just said it this way, it would be well understood.
Lisa, Iran says it is willing to negotiate if the United States lifts sanctions. Now, the president of Iran says his country would hold talks with the Americans if it returns to the 2015 nuclear deal.
Wouldn't that be nice? Well, Iran hasn't stuck to the terms of the nuclear deal, so they're expecting America to go back to the terms of the nuclear deal. How convenient. This more of this exchange. First, last week, they said that they would never come back to the nuclear deal. They don't want the nuclear deal. They're trying to get into deals with other countries, and particularly with the Europeans. But with the United States, they're done. They're not going to negotiate. They believe they have the upper hand. Of course, the Trump administration believes they have the upper hand. It's more of the same. We haven't seen any good behavior come out of the Iranian regime, not with regards to their regional activities, not with regards to their human rights. And I know people will say those two things were not part of the Iran deal in 2015, and that's true. But what was part of the deal was to bind them to a nuclear deal that would mean non-proliferation, that would mean less enrichment of uranium, that would mean not trying to work circles around the sanctions that are meant for their weapons program. And they did all that. So I don't know if there's any rewarding of good behavior here, but they're definitely not the ones to call the shots if there is to be further negotiations down the line.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has granted a visa to Iran's top diplomat to visit New York. But Lisa, it does have some restrictions to it.
Yeah, well, this happens every year. Well, it usually happens in September where we have the UN General Assembly. You have the president of Iran, and more recently, you have their foreign minister, Zarif, who comes over. He speaks perfect English. He is a career diplomat, speaks very well. And he goes on all these shows. And he did this just a couple months ago, where he went on all the Sunday morning shows and was able to say, we don't have any problem with human rights. We don't have any problem with, this, that, and the other thing, and to point the fingers at the United States and to Trump's behavior. And that's why the world is a mess. Why should we give him this opportunity? I don't know. Why should we give him these platforms? I don't know. Mike Pompeo obviously is further to the left than Donald Trump and other advisors that are in the Trump cabinet, namely John Bolton. And how that is being or how that influence is factoring into the overall Iran foreign policy is yet to be determined. But I think there is something to be said about playing good cop, bad cop, and allowing some freedoms, but as you said, with restrictions, to not give them free rein as they have had over the past few years.
The United Kingdom over the weekend tied the release of an Iranian oil tanker to a guarantee it would not go to Syria. Now, Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt told his Iranian counterpart he would facilitate the release of the Grace 1, which the British military says was seized off the coast of Gibraltar last week.
Right. So The UK doesn't want this to escalate, but they have to because it's, it's a national pride, right? And the thing is, when you have this confrontation with Iran, it's very difficult. Do you back down? Do you go forward? Do you flex your muscles? So there has to be some sort of contingency, right? So the UK says, you know what, we'll allow you to have your vessel back, but you have to promise us that it won't be going to Syria. Well, what are the Iranian regime's promises good for? And of course we know that this is going to be more of the same. But again, you have this, carrot and stick type of diplomacy. You have, whether it's the United States, the Europeans, you have this belief that there can be traditional diplomacy when it comes to the Iranian regime. And it baffles me how they continue to have this type of rhetoric when it comes to the Iranians. And, I guess the counter argument to that would be, what is the alternative? Is it to go to war? Is it to continue the sanctions? Is it just this pressure campaign that has actually been working to a certain degree? Obviously, economically, it's been working. So we'll see where this rhetoric gets the UK and whether there will be a deal that's made, whether they'll get their boat back, and how this will play out.
Europe's biggest powers, including Germany, Britain, and France, are calling for dialogue to prevent the collapse of the nuclear deal. Tell me more about that.
Right. So it's a little bit awkward is a good word when you have this confrontation of Iran with the West. And when I say West, it's obviously with the UK over this situation in the waters, with the United States, of course, pulling out of the P5+1 nuclear deal. But then all of a sudden, the Europeans really don't want to let this go, and it's hanging on by a string. There is nothing to keep this deal in place. We know that the Iranians have gone against their word. We have proof. We've seen the sites. They've actually claimed that they are enriching their uranium, and the Europeans got nervous and said, please don't. We prefer you to kind of keep to the deal until we can figure this out and hopefully renew the deal. And it looks really awkward, but I think the Europeans would want and see so much potential in an Iranian trading partner. But again, not at the cost of severing ties with the United States. I don't think they can afford to do that. But if they can manage to have this balancing act between having a lukewarm relationship with the United States, which is enough, and going forward with whatever they've had in the past in terms of economic ties with the Iranian regime, then they'll take that.
According to the Times of Israel, a senior Hamas official is calling on Palestinians to stab and kill Jews around the world. It's very sad, Lisa, but I guess nothing new to see here, right?
Right, and you have this, on the eve of when the peace plan will be rolled out from the White House. We already saw an economic plan for the Palestinians and their future and their prosperity, to which they scoffed, and they didn't even show up to the Bahrain conference. And now, just weeks before we have any indication we don't have any indication when exactly this will be rolled out, but very soon. When we have a peace plan, you have an announcement by a top official. Now, remember, Hamas is a terror organization, but they're also the official and recognized leadership of the Palestinian people, announced that it's not enough to just kill Jews in Israel, to go after the Israeli soldiers, to kill people on the border, to go into pizza shops and buses and wherever else and kill Jews. You should kill them wherever you see them. And if you live abroad, then you should do it there, whether it's in the United States, in Canada, or Mexico, wherever you see Jews, you should kill them. More of the same. I don't think that this is an easy situation. I do believe that the Palestinian people deserve better, but they deserve better from their own government. When you have a terror organization governing you and telling you to kill people, I mean, what kind of psyche does that create from childhood? And what kind of future are we hoping for? I mean, we can remain optimistic, but it doesn't look good.
Lisa, a new study has found that about half of China's loans to developing countries are hidden.
Shocker, right? That China would have such clandestine economic operations under the table. We don't know about them. More of the same. But I do believe that it is important for us, as the West, the United States, if we want to sit down with China, to delve into all of their secret actions and behaviors, because these are conditions that should be included in any deal going forward. Now remember, it's not just about the tariffs, it's not just about import and export. That's actually the part of the relationship with China that we've enjoyed here in the West. The issue with China is that they are going behind our backs, and when they steal patents and they steal copyrights and they kind of throw us for a loop when it comes to cybersecurity and tech and things like that, then we really need to watch our backs. And this is yet another report that shows us that their behavior, their activities, their actions have not been obviously straightforward. They have loans. They have obviously an interest in growing their sphere of influence. We know that. Many of these loans and activities happen in the African continent, in the Latin American continent. And why is that? Because these are places that are up for grabs. And China offers them Wi-Fi, offers them a phone line in places that are, don't even have toilets. And they take it, and they get, an 80-year loan or whatever it may be. And China has dibs. They put their footprints all over the globe. And this is where we should be following them. Very important to follow this, and very important to make this part of the deal before we sit down with China once again.
Not only have immigration officials have had their hands filled with illegal border crossers, but Lisa, border agents in the U.S. and Mexico border made a huge drug bust when they found $1.7 million worth of meth found hidden in an SUV.
Yeah, I wonder if that's in pesos or dollars, or what kind of, how much that was. It's a lot. Regardless, it's a lot. This is, these stories come out every day at this point, whether it's finding bad actors among those immigrants who want to come in, or whether it's this kind of bust where you find this much, the narcotics trying to come into the country. Nothing new. We know that they want to smuggle in weapons, they want to smuggle in drugs, they want to smuggle in bad guys. And I think that's the reason for pulling the brakes on a lot of this immigration stuff, in addition to the fact that we just can't absorb these numbers as fast as they're coming in. But you'd wish that half this country would understand that, so that we could at least be on the same page. There's no way to vet these individuals. There's no way to call, the Guatemalan DMV or, Honduras's public library and see who these people are before letting them in. And when you have a story like this, it's an eye-opener as to what the reality is, what the agendas may be. And I know that there's a lot of innocent people in the migrant pools, but there's also this type of activity as well.
Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles, California. Thanks so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.
Artificial intelligence, or AI, is already here. Now, is it a good or a bad thing? It's not going away anytime soon, so how should we respond? Joining me now via Skype from San Diego, California, is Chad Stewart. He's the founder of the Devonfield Company and author of the exciting new book entitled Britfield and the Lost Crown, the first in a series of 5 novels. Chad, welcome to BCN.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a bit about your book, and it's filled with a lot of family values, is it not?
It is. It's great. It's the first in a 5 to 7 book series, Britfield and the Lost Crown, and it takes place in England. And what's great about this book is it's a little under 400 pages. It's a fast-paced adventure novel, but what's fun about it is that it's placed in real time. So it's not in the future, it's not in the past. And what's nice about this too is it's not a fantasy book, where Tom and Sarah, who are 2 orphans up at Weatherly Orphanage up in England, are trying to escape. Tom finds out that his family might still be alive, and they somehow commandeer a hot air balloon and start traveling throughout England. And so what's exciting about the book, we've already scored a 9.03 out of a scale of 1 to 10 across all our demographics, if you can imagine, is that it really focuses on family values, and it takes place in current times, which really, I think, engages the audience a lot better. So we're really excited. We did a soft launch in April, and then we're going national in really August, and then international next year.
Hot air balloon ride. Yeah, I did that myself about 10 years ago. It's an amazing adventure. So who is the book really aimed at primarily? Is it families? And what kind of feedback are you receiving so far?
Sure. It's really kind of a middle school young adult book. But what's interesting is that 55% of the young adult audience are parents. And it's interesting. We just received an email from one of our fans, a 43-year-old mother who picked up the book and read it and emailed us back and said she just absolutely loves us. So our youngest reader was an advanced 7-year-old. Our oldest reader is an 87-year-old retired doctor who couldn't put it down and loved it. We've had 12-year-olds that have read it in 5 hours. And the feedback has been phenomenal. We won 7 awards so far. And again, it was just soft launched in April. We won an international award. And it's just amazing. I mean, the feedback's been incredible. We're getting 10 out of 10s from our audience, from our demographics, from our reading group. And then we can talk a little bit about the book tour too.
Now, Chad, you say we have an AI crisis. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, as AI is creeping on us and already on us, we definitely are in an AI crisis. And this we could talk a little bit about the creativity and how to counter it. But it's really, I mean, I could just give you some numbers and some stats because they speak for themselves. But because of AI, within the next 5 or 10 years, 95% of all accounting jobs will be obsolete. 40 to 50% of all banking jobs will be obsolete. We know that almost 40 to 50% of all the medical fields, such as doctors and nurses, will be leaving that field in the next 7 to 10 years. A lot of it's going to be replaced by AI or online medical things. And along with analytical, engineering, and media jobs are all going to be replaced by AI. And I can go on and on, but I don't want to flood you with statistics. But we definitely are in a crisis right now. We're in an AI crisis and a creativity crisis.
Well, you know what's interesting? I've noticed even in China, in the Far East, how they've substituted real-life news anchors with AI, you know? And I'm like, wait a minute, that's my job. Whoa, whoa, easy here, right? So what are some of the practical approaches we can implement now to stay ahead of the AI game?
I think some of it is, and we can talk a little bit about media, its impact and its influence, or just even the iPhones. And there's a balance to anything. I mean, it's just, I think if you're a parent, you know, I think a couple things that are really important is make sure that you have strict, rules regarding the iPhone with your kids. I think there should be a certain age that kids don't have the iPhones. We know the impact, and I don't think we have enough time to go into all of it, but the effects that the iPhone and media will have on a child, especially from the ages 12 and under. So, you know, some of the simple things is, I mean, my goodness gracious, never at the dinner table, or if you're out for a family meeting, I think I would curb it, you know, to a certain amount of times during the day. But on the other side of it, we can't deny how amazing it is to have it. I mean, I know for myself, you know, if I'm traveling or just in general, you have an entire computer just on a phone and you can do everything that you need to do on it. So there's definitely pros and cons to it, but it is a problem. I think if you're using your iPhone, and I'm using kind of that as a media sort of AI type of thing, because a lot of the phone is geared towards that AI. You know, never, you know, always use the speaker. Never hold it up to your ear. For women on the iPad or any of those kind of things, never lay down. Never have it laying on your stomach because it has a lot of effects on your brain, on your body. So those are just some of the practical things. I can go more in depth if you wanted me to.
You know what's interesting too is I think it's like what Mom always says, everything in moderation. So be careful with the AI because it might interfere with social interactions, with personal relationships with human beings, right?
It is, and we're seeing that. And again, I mean, if we had an hour, we could really go into it. But you're seeing that with this generation. They call it, you know, the Generation Z, and all the skills and all the skill sets are down. Communication skills, writing skills, all of that. Some of that's from the Twitter, you know, phenomenon where you know people are getting used to not even completing complete sentences and stuff. We have a massive problem in the educational system and the school system. A lot of it from media, a lot of it from AI, and where we're directed with AI and what it's trying to replace. And so I think at a practical standpoint, nothing beats, you know, relationships, the one-on-one communication, the getting outside. I mean, I remember, and you probably remember as a kid, we'd go down to the park and go play, or you get together with all your friends and stuff. That's just as healthy now as it's ever been. And get the kids off the games. You know, I mean, if you have to, 30 minutes a day, or let them earn it, you know, finish your homework, and then you can play for 35, 45 minutes. Get the kids outside, get them interacting, get them in sports, or fun sports, or curricular sports, or Frisbee football, or something with the friends or the fam. I mean, those kind of things. Everything that we grew up with is as important, if never more important now. And a lot of it's just kind of common sense and practicality.
But you know, I remember too when I was a kid, you're right. I mean, before dinner was hop on my bike after school and take off, and then come home, have dinner, you know, finish my homework, and then take off again on my bike until it was time for bed, right? And then you came back home.
Yeah. It's the getting outside. It's the natural light, because obviously there's also a lot of research that's based on just your laptop and the particular type of light feeds back, especially with the phone. Don't have it. One thing with the phone is don't have it by your bedstand. Don't have it there at night. Turn it off or keep it away. Keep it in another room. A lot of those kind of things are really important.
Now, you're doing a national school tour of over 250 schools, educating students and teachers about creative thinking. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so you have the AI crisis, and then we also have the creativity crisis. So I guess what's the biggest thing that you can do to counter the AI crisis or the creativity crisis? And the one thing with all the stats that I talked about earlier about AI is that the one thing it cannot replace is creativity. So on one side, as a nation, the United States, we've been in a massive decline creativity-wise for the last 2 decades. And I'll give you a couple quick stats and scores, but a famous researcher, writer, George Land, had done a study of over 20 years of children and watching their progression. And he noticed that 5-year-olds have scored a 95% as far as creativity. He tested them again at 10 and they were at 30%. He tested them at 15 and they were at 10%. And so you see this massive decline from 5 to 15 of creativity. So we as a nation are in a creativity crisis. Dr. Kim, she's out of William and Mary. She's done a wonderful book called The Creativity Crisis. She also did a study of hundreds of thousands of students over a 20-year period, and noticed that in 10 different specific areas, critical thinking, creativity, communication, it's just been a massive decline. And so you have this creativity crisis, you have this AI crisis, but on the other side of it, AI can never replace creativity. You have the World Economic Forum that's saying creativity will be one of the top 3 skills by 2020. You have an IBM study that did a survey with 1,500 CEOs nationwide that said creativity is the #1 leadership quality of the future. And then you had an Adobe study, 2012, that showed that HR hiring directors are preferring creative candidates, 5 out of 1. And I could go on and on and on with the numbers. And I have all the stats out there, and you can research it yourself. But it's really showing that in the next 5 to 10 years, in my opinion, from my research, creativity will be the most important skill set to have. And so you might be an older adult, 40, 50 years old, and say, that's not going to affect me. And it's just like, it will affect you in the next 3 to 5 years, and it's affecting your children right now. And if they don't start to incorporate creativity skills or creative arts or any kind of artistic sort of thing or field, they're going to be left out, and they're not going to be able to get work or jobs.
Now, the book Britfield and the Lost Crown fosters the 4 C's. We're talking creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration, correct?
Correct, yeah. And I'm sorry I cut you off about the book tour, but yeah, we launched a spring book tour. And what I'm doing is I'm coming into schools. We're leading as an award-winning author with Britfield and Lost Crown, but I'm doing about a 45-minute presentation on creativity. And I usually have a room full of middle school students and teachers of anywhere from 100 to 200 at a time. And it's just been wonderful. It's been very interactive. We have lots of fun pictures to look at. We talk a little bit about Pixar, Toy Story, Star Wars, all these creative things. And what the biggest thing is where they came from, which is an idea and the power of having an idea. And so I've done already 39 schools, 4,500 students, and we're just about to launch in August 100 to 150 schools, 16 states, and I'll be back by Christmas.
So critical thinking is vital as well. It's all about problem solving. Why do you think it's so important in today's schools that we teach more on critical thinking?
Well, it's about individuality, #1, and thinking outside the box is #2. I mean, we have a which is unfortunate. We have an educational model that's centuries old. It's really based on the Industrial Revolution, and it's based on a factory model. And many of it is that, or much of it is about, that there's only one right answer, and there are lots of different answers. There's lots of different approaches. So pretty much what you have is, especially on the public side, is you have an educational system that's kind of forcing conformity when that's the worst thing to absolutely force. You want kids to be free, to think for themselves. I mean, there are future entrepreneurs of America. There are future artists. There are future, and again, too, it's not just about the arts. It's creativity is in everything. Creativity is in science. It's in mathematics. It's in engineering. It's in architecture. Creativity is in everything. But you have to have that skill set.
Yeah, creativity, absolutely, in the United States and here in Canada. Talk to us a bit about communication. How can students learn how to best convey their ideas?
I think I can give you an example. I think the best way is, let's just talk from the educational standpoint, the teachers. If the teachers were to bring in just one creative exercise a week or gosh, even once a month. And we actually, through our Britfield Institute, we offer all kinds of creative exercises for free to teachers. In fact, we've been, sort of engaged with over 150,000 teachers offering these free gifts. But if they just did one of these exercises where it's just don't worry about it, there are no right answers, put your pencil down, and did one of these exercises, 30 minutes, maybe on a Wednesday or maybe on a Monday to kick things off. And it was kind of a brainstorming exercise. I mean, it could be let's figure out a commercial for a product, or let's write a fun story real quick for a movie idea or something. That kind of idea where you're getting that interaction and you're calling on each of the students and you're building on a story. Storytelling is hugely important, and that's one exercise that if a teacher were to do that once a month, you would change the entire dynamics in that entire classroom. The one thing about creativity is it never comes back void. And what I mean by that is the second that someone tastes of it, the second that someone has that experience of it, it fills them, it fills that need that, and unfortunately, so many schools have been kind of pushing out of them. So that's just one idea, yeah.
So Chad, Britfield and the Lost Crown is currently in print form, but you're also looking at a potential movie version, promoting some of those family values and education?
Yeah, it's exciting. We're looking at a major motion picture within about 2 to 2.5 years. 90% of the feedback that we've received from our readers says that it reads like a movie. The two questions I get the most from anyone that's read it is, when is book 2 coming, and will there be a movie? And so we're already in talks about the film. We're all excited about it. But again, obviously, we've got to launch the product and get it out there, which is what we're planning to do. And we're doing the book tour. We're doing a lot of media like now, and a lot of other different approaches and stuff. But we're really excited about it. I mean, it's going to be a fantastic movie, yeah.
You've also developed an 80-page study guide so schools can adapt Britfield as part of their curriculum and teach it over a semester. Any takers so far?
Oh, yeah. We developed it's actually an 83-page study guide. It's based on national standards because Britfield and the Lost Crown is meant to be taught, it's meant to be taught in class. It's meant to be taught over, half a semester or a full semester. You could spend 1 week just on the first couple of chapters. It's designed that way. It's designed on the classic 3-act structure. It has all kinds of vocabulary, subplots, character arcs. And so we have that. We're offering it free to teachers. And believe it or not, 25% of all the schools we've already been to have already asked for the study guide, and a couple of schools have already bought Britfield to in bulk to teach in their classes next semester, which is frankly unparalleled and unheard of. It usually takes years and years to kind of get the book into the schools, but teachers get it, they love it. And what's great about we have a website, Britfield.com, which I really recommend anyone just to go check out. It's got 400 pictures of Britain. It's got interactive maps. And so anyone that's kind of reading it can use the website, because that's what's so fun about the book is it's not fantasy. All these are real locations. The streets are real. All the facts, the history, everything else is real. And so kids can really enjoy it, and they can actually use the website as they're reading the book and see all these places, the castles, Oxford, Windsor Castle, London, Hyde Park, you name it. And so, and the teachers can use the website as they're teaching it in class. So,
Chad Stewart, founder of the Devonfield Company and author of the book Britfield and the Lost Crown. Thanks a lot for joining me today from San Diego, California.
It's great. Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.